2024 is the year of imaginary friend movies, isn't it? Hi, I'm Tyler. I review movies by reenacting them, and today we're going to talk about The Imaginary. From the studio that gave us Mary and the Witch's Flower and Modest Heroes, The Imaginary is about a lot of things, really. It's about an imaginary friend named Rudger who's separated from his creator, who is still dealing with the death of her father, which really doesn't play into the story, while her mother is selling the family business, trying to find a job while being supportive to her daughter, which doesn't really play into the story. And when he's at risk of disappearing forever, it becomes a race against time to reunite with his creator Amanda, or else he'll either vanish forever, or he'll be forced to stay in this one safe haven that's basically Foster's home for imaginary friends, where the second you leave, you have 24 hours in order to get back, otherwise you perish, or you're also at risk of being eaten by this immortal who consumes imaginary friends. And can you tell already what the big problem with the movie is? Because I figured it out less than 5 minutes into this, but you know what? I was actually excited and kind of pissed off at first that The Imaginary went straight to Netflix. I kind of wanted to see this in theaters just because one of the directors of Studio Ponoc, Hiromasa Yonebayashi, made one of my all-time favorite movies, period. And since Ghibli's not going to be around forever making new stuff, I kind of want there to be more hand-drawn movies being made for audiences to see. And to be honest, the first 5 minutes show what could have been a really good fantasy drama. The animation is absolutely gorgeous with its bright watercolors, the motions the characters do, these, for lack of a better term, imaginative childlike scenarios that this little girl comes up with, and the sweeping camera movements that you would expect from a Ghibli fantasy are super cinematic, and it's really fun to watch these kids play, even if one of them isn't really there. In fact, the two of them bickering over what can or can't exist in this imaginary world, where this little girl comes up with all of these names. I'm not even kidding, she names a bobsled reindeer after the beer her mother drinks. Only a kid can come up with something like that. The filmmakers even went the extra mile of having Rudger interact with and touch objects even while the mother is there and can't even see him. When she throws a towel over the little girl, we see the towel touch Rudger even though technically that's not even what's happening. There was thought and dedication that went into the world building of this. But during those 5 minutes, there was also a lot of narration from Rudger and exposition between him and the little girl Amanda, on top of all these imaginative scenarios. In fact, I would say there are only 2 or 3 scenes tops where they're actually just playing and soaking in all of this beautiful scenery. So when the two of them get split up in a completely avoidable accident that was kind of Rutger's fault to begin with, it's the one thing the villain says in this that was actually true, it's hard for me to get invested about them reuniting when I was just starting to figure out what their relationship was like, the camaraderie that they had. And unfortunately from then on, the amount of exposition and info dumps only increases the more characters Rudger is introduced to. There are so many scenes that are just characters standing around or sitting around explaining their backstories or lack thereof, because some of them have been gone from their creators so long that they don't even remember their own past. There's one character who only exists really to spell out the themes of accepting death and cherishing the memories of your loved ones most, which isn't a bad message, but because the dead father subplot really could have been written out and nothing would have changed, or the fact that the ending, without spoiling anything, just kind of pushes the themes aside and says, yeah, it'll happen eventually, but not now. It's really inconsistently portrayed, and tons of explaining the rules and mythology of imaginary friends in this, what they can or can't do. And I'm just gonna say it, the rules in this make fuck all sense. Some of it is actually really cool. I mean, the Foster's Home safe haven I was just talking about is actually this library where the Imaginaries actually kind of feed the library itself, because that's where imagination thrives as these kids are reading their books. In fact, they can actually teleport from the library to the kids' living rooms depending on what books they checked out and what fantasies they're living out. And that scene, one scene, because that's the one we actually get, was actually pretty cool, and you didn't need Amanda to be the one driving the story forward. But at the same time, I shit you not on this. The villain has an ID card that says Mr. as his first name, and people just accept it. But an imaginary friend can't walk through a wall or a closed door. A door or a window needs to be open for them to get through it. How the fuck is that supposed to make any sense? They're imaginary. They exist within these kids' minds, and if the kids have already forgotten about them, shouldn't they be ghosts at this point? Why do the laws of physics need to apply? The Imaginary spends way too much time on philosophical monologues explaining what it means to be an imaginary friend and why it's important, as opposed to actually seeing kids play with imaginary friends, which I think we can all agree was what we wanted to see about this movie. So as a result, when he comes across all these side characters and they try to help him, I barely know a thing about them other than they have cool looking designs, except for the Jar Jar of the movie, who only exists for comic relief. And when I say comic relief, I mean it's a man doing a high-pitched voice. Because, you know, that's just instantly fucking hilarious, right? Even the villain lost a ton of steam as time went by. At first, I was actually kind of creeped out by him. He had a gross-looking design. He actually sniffed the air looking for Imaginaries and didn't give a shit if people stared at him weird. And I will say this, there was potential for him to be, at the very least, threatening. But as time went on, he just started giving a bunch of Saturday morning monologues about how hopeless things seemed. And his henchwoman is just the girl from The Ring and doesn't do anything else. I don't think she even says a word in this, which normally a silent henchwoman would be a cool thing, but yeah, she shapeshifts sometimes, not enough, and not into anything cool or creepy. I don't even know what else there is to say about the Imaginary other than it feels like 5 TV show episodes crammed into a 100-minute movie, and to be honest, why didn't they just make a TV show about this? You could have fleshed out every single character, could have easily given them their own episode interacting with a child or being forgotten, and the acceptance of death theme could have been considerably more complex and subtle when you think about it, but this was just a complete and utter missed opportunity. I feel bad saying this is the first Studio Ponoc film I've seen, but here's hoping they learn from this going forward, that the story needs to be a hell of a lot better. It needs to be more fantastical. Yeah, I got nothing else. I don't recommend seeing this on Netflix. I do recommend you check this out, though, because this is pretty underrated as far as Ghibli movies go. But in any case, guys, thanks as always for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the Imaginary. Be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on Patreon and buy me a coffee. And I'll see you all in the next review. Take care.